Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Big Show presented by GamesBeat. My name is Rachel Kaser, news writer at GamesBeat, and I'm here with Jude Ower, Chief Strategy Officer at PlanetPlay and co-host of the Good Games Club podcast. Jude, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
Awesome, and welcome to GamesBeat Summit. I hope you're enjoying yourself so far.
Yeah, so far it's been amazing. So much more to see, but yeah, it's been really good so far.
So first of all, congratulations on the launch of the Good Games Club podcast. How has that been so far?
Really good. I mean, the reception we're getting from the industry and non-industry is really positive. I mean, we're still quite new in. We've got about 20 podcasts recorded, but we've launched 6. But we're starting to ramp up now to have 2 to 3 a month. But yeah, reception overall has been really good. So, you know, the overall objective is to try and change the narrative of games from games being bad to games being good, and just lift the lid on, you know, the good stuff that's happening in the industry. And there's so many people now coming to us to say, we had no idea that this was happening, or this was a thing, or, you know, about topics like accessibility or inclusion or sustainability. So it's doing the thing we wanted it to do.
Mm-hmm. So when you say that you want to, lift the curtain, if you will, draw back the curtain on the games industry, why do you think there is a curtain there in the first place?
I think we're not so good at talking about the good things that happen. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that could be a range of things from, incredible case studies of games raising money for good causes, or around like players being inclusive or supporting one another. I just don't think it's something that we're good at bragging about. Mm-hmm. And it's on, you know, we've talked to many studios about this, and they've just said, yeah, you know, we just haven't thought about sharing it, or we don't want to brag, and I think if there's a platform there to be able to talk about the good stuff for them, then they'll come on board because they want to share the good stuff. Mm-hmm. It's just not something that they've kind of inherently really done before.
So if you don't mind, maybe you can give me a little bit of background on yourself, because for those of you who are at home, I accidentally referred to her by her previous job, which as CEO of Planet Mob, when she sat down. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are now, and also maybe a little bit about how you started the podcast.
Yeah, sure. So my background is I've been about 2 decades in gaming for good. Mm-hmm. So I started off in games education. I had a games company that was building games for training and education, and then just being sat in the room with children and adults, just seeing how it transforms everyone and putting them on a level playing field really made me think, you know, imagine we can do this at scale, imagine we can do this and make impact in other ways. So I went on to set up PlayMob, which is
PlayMob, yes, not Planet
PlayMob. No, it's okay. It's all the P's. There's many P's. So PlayMob was a platform that was connecting games to charities. Mm-hmm. So as you play a game, you buy an item, raise money for charity. It was kind of inspired by Zynga when they did one of the big first campaigns for the Haiti earthquake, and they raised $2 million for victims of the earthquake. But they also saw it had a positive impact on their player community, to the point of bringing in new players, deepening engagement, longer lifetime value, monetization. People were spending money for the first time. So this really inspired me to set up PlayMob. And then we were quite early in doing what we were doing. We worked with some of the biggest, like we worked with EA, Ubisoft, we worked with Supercell. But we actually realised that one of the things that we didn't know was how the players felt. And so then we pivoted into data and insights, looking at player sentiment and attitudes, and really focused down on climate change. Mm-hmm. And so the platform, PlayMob became a platform to really understand player sentiment around climate change. And as part of that, we did things like we worked with the UN and gathered player sentiment on climate policies. And that fed into something called the People's Climate Vote, which ended up informing 60 world leaders on climate policies, which was incredible. So if you think about, like, one of the quickest, most efficient ways to reach people globally is through games, and that's essentially what we were doing through PlayMob. We were then acquired by PlanetPlay in 2024. So PlanetPlay is a platform connecting gamers to climate action, and we do that in 2 ways. One is through in-game fundraising, similar to what PlayMob was doing, and we also have a store where we could list PC games. And rather than take a store fee, we give a percentage back into green projects. So as well as getting games for, we get really good discounts and deals from game studios. but also they know that a percentage of that sale is then going back into green projects. So that's what PlanetPlay does. So it made sense that PlayMob then became part of PlanetPlay, and we created this kind of green gaming tech stack. So then, yes, what inspired the podcast really was I co-authored a book called Gaming for Good with Matthias Norvig of Cyber Games, called Gaming for Good, and the point of that was to demystify gaming. Who are gamers, gaming culture, what is gaming today? And really kind of looking at the good case studies of things that were positive that were happening in the industry, and almost kind of create a bit of a blueprint for if you're a game studio, if you're a player, or if you were not from the industry, how can you leverage one of the most powerful mediums on the planet for good? So the book was great, really well received, but it's a slice in time. And by the time you write a book, it's out of date already.
Fair, yeah.
Because there's so much happening in the industry. So that's why we thought what we need to be doing is taking the conversations from the book and adding to them. And that's where the podcast was born.
So when you say that gaming can be used as a force for good, can you give me some examples of how you think games can be used, both in your work and what you've seen in the podcast of how games can be a force for change in the world?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of examples. So you've no doubt have heard of the Call of Duty Endowment. So that's something we've been tracking for a long time, and just the fact that you can leverage. It's obviously a big IP, huge player base, but twice a year they raise money to fill up the endowment, and then they distribute cash to not-for-profits who are supporting veterans get back into employment. And so far they've helped 170,000 veterans get back into employment, but they do it at a 14th of the cost of the US government. So they've really tracked the impact model, and it just shows like what can happen when you kind of leverage the power of games to then do good. Another example is around human connection, accessibility. We interviewed recently Special Effect, who are they're trying to tackle those who can't, or support people who can't play. And so that there's 1 billion people on the planet that live with a disability, and there's different types of disabilities. So they're making controllers to then help people play, and this can transform someone's life. In terms of they could be in a wheelchair with no mobility at all. They can't move, but they can move a game controller with their eyes using eye gaze technology, and that's completely life changing. And there's real examples of this as well within like the life of Evelyn. Which is about a young man who passed away when he was 25, but he had a muscular disorder. His family realised that because he's in a wheelchair and he had no mobility, he was playing a lot of video games. And after he passed away, they realised that he was spending all of his time in World of Warcraft. So when he passed away, they wrote a blog on his blog, and like hundreds and hundreds of people started getting in touch with him, turned up at his funeral, and they realised that he was living such a rich life through games. And so I think one of the things that we're also trying to do is show these, there's thousands of these stories, millions of these stories, and we want to get them out there because there's a big disconnect now between, there's a generation now that don't really understand video games, who may have played when they were younger, but don't get like children's time on video games right now. And so there's a disconnect then between children and their parents. And if you take that as one example, how can we make this gap smaller by helping parents understand the good side of gaming, and also help families understand healthy video gaming? So that's the other part of it as well, is not putting on rose-tinted glasses. Just like anything, you don't do one thing all the time.
Right.
So everything in moderation.
Yes.
Teaching people how to play in a really healthy and responsible way is also good, but also working with the industry to try and make gaming, the best it can be, to make it safer, more inclusive. So there's all these examples of things that are happening in the industry to things that people want to talk about because they want to try and see change happening, or just ways that we could improve the industry moving forward. The industry is going through big shifts and changes right now, but how can we shape it to be the best it can be? So that's probably a long answer to your question, but
no, that's interesting. Because that was one of the follow-up questions was what do you think gaming as a force for good could accomplish in the world?
Oh, gosh, so many things. There's so many things.
That's a very broad question, so take as long as you need to answer.
So many things. I mean, I think if we think about accessibility, it's that friendships community, inclusiveness, the disconnect between parents and carers and the children. Can we like lessen that gap and help adults see that video gaming is another form of play. It's like taking your kids out to play football or taking them out to do an activity. You can game together, really understand what they're doing. And I think that could have a huge global mindset shift in I guess, family connection. And then I think one of the other areas I think is fascinating, just, I started off in the space of games for education, but I think looking at not just games in education, but games and skills, and not just the skills you need to develop games, because I think there's a big piece of work there in terms of helping people get more into technology by helping them build games, thinking about the output, but the skills that we learn as we play. And I think that's a really fascinating area because one of the guests that we interviewed, David Barry, he is from an organisation called the Game Academy, and they've helped over 6,000 people get back into employment because of the skills that they learned through video games.
Oh, wow.
Which is incredible.
It is, yeah.
So you can look at, and they've looked at different types of games and the skills that you learn as you play, and then match these to the sorts of skills that you need for different jobs. And they're trying to use that to then help people get back into employment. So there's so many layers, from education to skills to getting back into jobs. Generally, if you're a veteran, if human connection, stronger families, stronger relationships, and there's many, many more. We can go into areas like sustainability or games like Fold.it that are going into scientific research.
Sure.
So the change is. Can we create better humans and make the world a better place because of the games that we play?
So what mindset do you think leaders in the industry should have with regards to positive change, positive news? I mean, other than obviously going on the Good Games Club podcast, but what mindset do you think they should have in order to improve the games industry as a whole?
That's a really, really good question, because I think where we're seeing the most impact are, some of the biggest companies in the world, or they've got the right mindset to be able to make that change happen. Because there's a couple of things that have to happen within a game studio, and one is there has to be an appetite to make change from within, from the employees, but also from a leadership role. There has to be the space to enable people to make that change. And so I think if you look at it sounds really crass to say it, but if you look at the good side as being a business case, it can have such a positive impact on business. And so if you help your employees, to give them the free rein to be able to do things like this and not see it as... So I think where there's a real danger is where you see leaders say, well, we do this for charity, or we do this on the side, and everything else is business. This could be weaved into business in such a deep and meaningful way. Because if we look after our players and if we appeal to the things our players care about, and more people care about social issues and things that are happening in the world, the world's a bit chaotic at the moment. So if we can, give players the chance to do something good in a game, we're seeing more and more players want to do that. So think about that in terms of user acquisition, monetization, retention, lifetime value. And so this is a lot of my work has always been kind of translating impact and good into a business case so that we can get leaders to understand it in their language. But I think more leaders are starting to understand it now, and you see it really, really happen from within. So, I mean, a great example is John Hanke from Niantic, or now Niantic Spatial. But when we interviewed him for the book, he said... one of his reasons for setting up Niantic was based on research. If you get people outdoors for 20 minutes a day, it can improve their mental health. And then if you think about Pokémon Go and the suite of games they create about getting people outdoors. So can we make a global shift in people's mental health by getting them outdoors? And, they enjoy the game. They play the game. They feel good. They're outdoors exploring. So there's a business case to doing good and trying to make some real world change. So I think the mindset shift is to be, empower your team, empower your people to help different roles and different functions understand how the good that they want to do can actually add to their role. So if you're in finance, how can social impact help your monetization strategies? It can attract first-time spenders. It can get people spending more, all because you're raising money for a good cause. Marketing is a great marketing message. Posting stuff on socials and communicating to your players, they love it. You get really deep engagement. Production-wise, when you're thinking about your production timelines or your production schedule, if you're going to do something good in-game, then add it to your production schedule. Just add it as another thing that you're going to do, but make it part of your core business. And I think that's where the leadership has to change. Leadership mindset, sorry.
I think that one of the important things about something like the Big Games Club podcast is the influence and the impact it can have on the community. What is your ideal? What is your ideal of the impact you want to make, or the influence that you want to have over the industry?
I think it's two things. So on the industry, it's really about giving them a confidence to be able to do more. And I think by showing the stories, showing the case studies, showing the examples, it can, you've got then leaders leading by example and showing how it's done, and essentially becoming a bit of a toolkit to show that it can be done and it's okay. It's nothing to be afraid of. So my hope is that it helps the industry to level up by giving them the right information. There's so much information out there already, from academic research. You've got papers, case studies, data, journals, books. I think sometimes it's just really hard to know where to start or where to find this information. But as a follow-on from the podcast, we're also creating something called the Academy, which will be all the information in one place that you can find to then implement. But we're hoping that the podcast inspires the industry to do more, or come forward and share their stories, because there's so much we haven't uncovered yet. So we're getting people reaching out already to tell us what they've done, and we were like, we have no idea this was happening. This is brilliant. So I want it to be a bit of a beacon to get people to come to us, share their stories, and then inspire other people. The second thing is to help educate the non-games industry. So, decision makers from the likes of policy makers, from media, from educationalists, researchers, from parents, schools, help them see the good side and help them be more informed about gaming and what gaming is, and that gaming isn't social media. And I think, coming into this world where, there's policies being put in place around social media bans or about screen time, I think it's really important to distinguish between the different things that we do on a screen. So I really want the non-industry to understand the good side, and even step up and work with the industry. If you're a not-for-profit, how can you work with the industry? If you're a brand, how can you leverage gaming? So I think there's a lot of work to be done on that side, because typically my background has always been working in gaming, but with the non-industry. And for 20 years, all I've heard is games are just for teenage boys sitting in their bedrooms playing shooters. Yeah. No, it's not it. Okay, yeah, they do that, but not all of them.
It's amazing how long that stereotype has persisted.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot about the podcast and, what you're doing with it, what you hope to do with it. But maybe you can tell me a little bit more about how it started and how you keep it going.
Yeah, sure. So as I said, the podcast was really driven out of having the book. And last year we met the Tencent team. And they'd been reading the book. The executives had been reading the book and learning more about gaming for good, which we were delighted about, because that was the point of the book. And when we told them about the podcast, they loved this idea. So they came on board as our founding strategic partner, which we were just delighted by, because they've helped us in so many ways. As well as being able to fund the conversations, they've been able to help with communications and bringing people together. They're really aligned with our goals and our vision. So that's been working really, really well. And then just recently, we announced the Dubai Film and Games Commission to be our headline strategic partner.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. We are really, really happy, because we've been watching the Middle East games market for a few years now. And actually, Dean, when I chatted to Dean about this, he summed up something really nicely, where he said, you have to be where the enthusiasm is. And so that, for me, it was Dubai. I thought, one of the places that's the most connected in the world. It's at the beginning, really, of its story, of its games industry. But there's over 300 games companies in Dubai already. And so when I went out to visit and I met the commission, there was just such a strong alignment in terms of how they see games being a force for good, and a really nice alignment between Tencent's values, Dubai Film and Games Commission values, and ours. So we're going to base the podcast in Dubai. It will still be global. The conversations will be global, but we'll do production, and its global home will be Dubai.
Very nice. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
So we should probably wrap up soon, but I'm just curious, like, what do you consider to be a game that has made the most positive impact in the last couple of years?
Oh, wow.
If you want me to change the question, that's fine.
No, it's good. I mean, I think, can I just give a couple of answers?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I mean, I'd mentioned one already. So I mean, the Call of Duty and the Call of Duty Endowment, I think, has made incredible impact to veterans' lives. Got Pokémon Go. We're getting so many people outdoors, and there's no. I guess
that's why we have Vaporeon here.
I guess it's hard to track, how that's impacted people's mental health. But if getting people outdoors for more than 20 minutes a day, and Pokemon does that, then there will be some impact in terms of how that's improved the quality of people's lives. And I think the other one that I just thought I was blown away when it came out, because I just thought it was one of the best examples of a AAA game, like, for good, was Hellblade. So the lead character has psychosis, and the way that game was built was, with people who had psychosis and experts who deal with psychosis and the Wellcome Trust, and they collaborated to really help people experience what it's like to live with psychosis, which I think then builds empathy. I just thought it was a really fascinating way to kind of build out a game, which, you look at it and go, AAA game, but actually it's got so much depth and meaning to it. I think more games are following suit as well. I definitely think like Overwatch with some of its characters have gone down that road as well. So it's very subtle, but I think it's a really good sign that kind of games teams are thinking in that way, in terms of like how to bring in diverse characters, build empathy, build community. So yeah, I think they would be there's many, many more, but I'll leave it at that.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being a guest here, Jude. Thank you. And thank you to all of you who are watching or listening to The Big Show from GamesBeat. I'm Rachel, and this has been Jude Ower from the Good Games Club podcast. And thank you very much for enjoying this with us.